Hello and welcome. My name is Ben Hales with Transform My Poker, and today's theme is how to make poker a second income. What most of us dream of when we first set out on our poker journeys. And today I'm going to give you a few tips on how you can achieve it. I've got plenty of slides to get through, so let's crack on. On a very basic level, two things are needed in order to make an income from poker. First of all, you need to be profitable at a format of the game. That does not mean that you once won a game and therefore you're profitable. It means consistently showing a profit over a meaningful sample size. And it doesn't mean that you have to be a jack of all trades. You could have mastered one particular format of the game. There are some heads-up specialists who can barely break even when they play on a full ring game. There are players who play in tournaments who aren't so good at cash games and vice versa. So you don't need to necessarily have become perfect at everything, but you need to be able to show a profit at one format of the game, right? Makes sense? The other thing you need is time. And if you've got those two things, you can make an income. How big that income is will depend on how profitable you are and how much time you have to play. Pretty simple. I'm stating the obvious. But if either of these two things is a problem for you right now, then you may struggle to make an income from poker at the moment. That doesn't mean you will struggle in the future, but you will need to fix something that's getting in the way. Either need to become more profitable or you need to free up some more time to get the hours of work in, right? Okay. How do you know if you are profitable? This is a question that I think a lot of people don't ask and probably should. So a lot of people who are perhaps borderline break even, maybe actually making a bit of a loss, but it looks like over short periods they might be profitable. You need to be really clear about how profitable you are. So the best way of doing this is by keeping records. Whether you're playing live or online, keep some kind of record of your performance. I'm old-fashioned. I use a spreadsheet. You can use more modern formats. I mean, the databases hold a lot of the information. If you're playing online, Holder Manager, Poker Tracker, etc. are very, very useful, and you don't necessarily need to do things manually, but don't ignore some of the potential benefits of doing some of your own accountancy. It can be quite sobering writing down losses, and keeps yourself grounded, and perhaps sometimes as a little break in between sessions makes you just become a bit more realistic, calm down, and you don't get carried away with yourself. Maybe reflect a little bit on what happened in the previous session. So it's not just an exercise of accountancy, but perhaps also has some wider benefits in terms of your mental state. That's how I've found it, and maybe you will find that that's working for you as well. Other things that you need to do specifically are to measure your profit and loss. So when you're keeping records, make sure you're writing down what is coming in and what is going out. I haven't got enough time today to go through in detail all the information that I record on my spreadsheet, but my best advice is keep it simple and focus in on how many games you're playing, what games you're playing, and what your profit and loss is. Yeah, don't get too complicated. There are different ways you can measure profit and loss. I recommend statistic-based measurements, and Holder Manager or Poker Tracker will really help you here by measuring expected value big blinds per 100 or expected value dollars per hour. So if you're an online player, these are going to be natural measurements that you're going to be using through your database. If you're a live player, don't worry if you're not understanding these terms. Just measure how much money you're making per hour or per hand. All right, and that way you can start to measure your profit and loss over a specific amount of time or sample of hands. Okay. Another way that you're going to know if you are profitable is by understanding sample size. So it's no good going off and playing a couple of sessions of cash, and maybe you've played 50 hands and 100 hands, and you're $100 up, and I'm really profitable. That's no good. You need to understand about variance within the game, and that you are going to have ups and downs. And you're going to need a reasonably large sample before you can say with confidence, I am definitely profitable, because you could be on a huge upswing. On the other hand, you will have pointers that are telling you whether you are better than the rest of the players. So you may be able to confidently say, yes, I am on average better than the field I'm playing in. And if that's the case, then as long as you can beat the rake, you should be a profitable player. So this is particularly relevant for live players, that you're probably not going to have a sufficient sample size in order to say, I'm definitely profitable. But you ought to be able to look at the players around you and look at the types of mistakes they're making compared with the mistakes that you're making, and assess how much better you are than the rest of the field. Okay? And of course, we're going to make mistakes. Sometimes we're going to overvalue how strong we are, and perhaps even for some of us, we're going to undervalue how good we are. But you should be able to pinpoint reasonably whether you're better than average within your field. And that's going to help you to work out if you're profitable. Ideally, you want to be, in the top 25% of the field. And that way you can be confident that overall you should be profitable. So to help with understanding variance, I recommend that you talk to other players and gain experience of playing different game formats, because they've all got different amounts of variance. So, if you play in turbo tournaments, for example, huge variance. You need to experience lots of poker, and that's the best way of understanding variance. Okay, so if you're new to the game, don't worry too much. This is something that you're going to pick up over time, and there's just no substitute for experience. Just a little bit more on sample size. So in cash games, 100,000 hands sounds a lot, and it is a lot of hands. And this is going to be a really good sample size. 20,000 hands is already a meaningful sample. So I don't want to scare you with a huge number. But 100,000 hands is a really, really solid sample to be able to say, oh, okay, this is my profit and loss. That's going to be pretty accurate, right? Now, for live players, you're going to find it really hard to rack up that number of hands. Online players, you might be able to get through that number of hands a lot faster. So this is one of the drawbacks of playing live, is you're not able to generate meaningful sample sizes. Tournaments, sample size depends massively on the format you're playing. For some types of tournaments, just 500 or 1,000 tournaments is going to be plenty. For others, you're going to need tens of thousands before your data becomes meaningful. Good example of that would be 6 max hyper turbos. Crazy variance. So turbos have high variance, slower formats have lower variance. And just that point at the end, that live players rarely going to have enough raw data, so you are going to have to fall back on your own gut feeling as to how strong you are against the field. But how do you really know if you're better than the field? I've kind of answered this a little bit, in that you need to look out for if you just got a bigger skill edge than your opponents, and this is particularly important for live players. But do be aware of your own inaccuracies within your assessments, both of your own skill and your opponents. The other thing I would like to say is that if you are playing live and you are getting really strong results, even over a small sample, then that can be an indicator that, yeah, you are beating these games. There's a chance you're just going on a lucky streak, but more likely you are genuinely killing the game. So, strong results, even over small samples, are obviously a good indicator. Also, the same is true of the opposite. So if you're not winning anything and there's no real indication of bad luck, then there's probably something going wrong with your game and you're maybe not so profitable. Little word on measuring profitability. So ideally you want to be calculating your expected value dollars per hour or your expected value big blinds won per 100 hands. These numbers are going to help you work out how much money you can make. Now, a database is going to help you. Live players, on the other hand, will need to keep records. So just to give a quick example of what we're talking about, let's say you make $12 an hour as a live player and you're working out your monthly hours available for playing poker, and you work out, okay, I've got to study this amount of time, but overall I reckon I can devote, say, 25 hours a week or 100 hours per month. Then what you do is simply work that out like that and then multiply the hours by the dollars per hour and you should get your monthly income. Simple mathematics, nothing too challenging for you there. But if you're not doing any of this and if you've never even thought about doing this, then hopefully this should inspire you to do a little bit of record keeping, because it is important. It's a discipline and poker players need to stay disciplined. So if you can add $1,200 to your monthly income, that's not half bad, is it? And for some of you, that may be achievable. Finally, just a quick note that there is a useful tool called bankrolltools.com, which will help you with some of your bankroll management needs. My name's Ben Hales with Transform My Poker. Thanks for listening today. If you enjoyed it, please do your Facebook likes down below or drop me a question. I'll be happy to answer. Until next time, bye for now.